that is what we are going to discuss today. At every minute, the universe is created in its totality and in each of its parts. So Yasmin has sent me this and she wants a discussion on that. Okay. So now, so look at the sentence carefully. Every minute the universe is created. Okay. So now, wherever there is creation, there is also a destruction in the physical world. You agree? Trees are being created and they get destroyed. Human beings have been created, body, mind, life, and they get destroyed. Okay? Insects are being born and they get destroyed. So destruction and creation always go together in the physical world. Okay? In the physical world. Archana ji, good morning.
Good morning, Rangadhar.
Yeah, I have sent you a WhatsApp message. You have a look
Yes,
at that.
I read it.
Yeah.
I have read it.
So this is what we are discussing. Okay. So it says that the creation is taking place in two ways, at the universal level and also at the minute level, the parts. Okay. So wherever there is creation in the physical world, there is also destruction. There is creation and there is annihilation. Okay. But not at the highest level. At the highest level, there is only immutability. There is no creation there at all. Above the supermind, there is no creation. It is unmanifested. The creation takes place only below because there is mutability here. In the physical world, there is mutability. Force is moving. And the highest level force is held back. So there is no creation at all. The creation is possible when it comes through the supermind, below the supermind. Okay. Below the supermind, the creation starts. And creation means movement, mutability. At the highest level, immutability. Go step by step. Okay. So now, in the creation here, first of all, let us see the difference, the gap, time gap between creation and death, creation and destruction. Let's take a mountain. Okay. It gets created by the earthquake, the continental plates come, give pressure against each other, and a mountain is born. Okay. Or you can also take an island which is formed by the lava. The volcano bursts and the lava comes out and goes into the sea. It gets cooled and an island is formed and slowly plants grow on it and the birds and all that come. So this is creation. But this creation of a mountain, can it get destroyed? Yes, it can get destroyed, but it may take thousands of years. Okay. So this is one thing. So there is a 1,000-year gap between some creations. Now we come down. Can there be a smaller gap of time between creation and destruction? Yes. Let us take the huge plants, the trees in California, for instance. They last 400 years. Okay. Even our banyan trees, they last for several centuries. So the gap is coming down between creation and destruction. Now take a human being. The gap between his creation and his destruction can be 100 years, 70 years. It is becoming less and less and less. Now go back to the next. What about a cat and a dog? 20, 25 years maximum. Okay, usually a dog or a cat lives for 15 years. So that which was 1,000 years, the gap is coming down to 400 years, is coming down to 100 years, and coming down even more. And inside 10 years, 15 years, then you come down to a butterfly. Okay, and the butterfly is lasting only for 1 week. So the gap between creation and destruction comes down to 1 week. In other words, the gap between creation and destruction can be very large and yet it is finite. Huh? Nothing in the physical world is infinite. Okay, infinitely in time it is not. It is subject to time. So you come down and slowly the gap is between creation and destruction is becoming less and less. Now the question arises, is there something which is created and destroyed within a few seconds? That's a question, because we are going to systematically one by one, and we are saying 1,000 years, 400 years, 100 years, 25 years, and a butterfly 1 week. Now the question comes, a few seconds. So you have to think out whether anything is, take a stillborn child, okay? He is created, he comes out of the womb and there's infant mortality and he dies very quickly, okay? But it's not few seconds. Now, is there something in the physical world which is only lasting for a few seconds? That's the question. Now, yeah, tell me.
The unicellular organisms, some Rangadhar.
Yeah, yes.
Some bacteria maybe.
I was waiting to hear that from a doctor. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So now the question arises, is not a few seconds even, but instantaneously there is creation and there is destruction. Is there anything like that? That is exactly what Mother is saying. She is saying that at every moment there is creation, but instantly there is also destruction. And the time gap between creation and destruction, if it was several seconds, then we will see the creation and we will see the destruction. But suppose they become absolutely one. Will you see the creation and the destruction? You won't. You will only see the continuity of something when they become one. And this is the truth of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Okay. Every minute, every second, every instant of second even, okay, it is being created and it is being destroyed. But why should it be destroyed? Because immutability is only at the highest level. At the lowest level, there is mutability. If anything is created, it is bound to be destroyed. That is the nature of the physical world, transience, okay, mutability. So the gap between creation and destruction joins and becomes one. So at every minute, the world is being created, the entire universe is being created, but immediately being destroyed. This is the truth of Brahma is creating, Shiva is destroying, but Vishnu sees to it that there seems to be a continuity. Okay, so this is what Mother is saying. Now, this is true at the universal level, universe. Now, what about the minute parts? That also is there, but here in the creation and destruction in the minute parts, okay, a stone, a caterpillar, a human being, there is a time lag between creation and destruction. But there is destruction and creation also in the physical world. So Mother is stressing only the creation part, but when she is saying it is being created every second, how can something be created and again a new creation? There has to be some destruction also. So this is what is meant by the quotation that we have seen. Okay, every minute there is every second, every instant there is creation and there is, but we see it as a continuous whole. Okay, this is the what Swami is saying, and this has been discussed in the Life Divine also, and it's a very, very fundamental principle that creation and destruction both are there in the physical world. Now, take the image of a clock. Okay, it's very interesting because destruction is related to movement. So take a clock which is going every second, it is stopping. Okay, so the creation and the destruction, or in other words, the rest and the movement, every second you see it in the clock. Okay, like that is going on. So there is, you can see, we are talking of creation and destruction, but you can also talk of it as non-movement and movement, because movement is related to destruction and creation. So if you see the clock, okay, every second it is a jerky movement and it is going. The time gap between rest and movement is 1 second. Now take a digital clock. Okay, it is a continuous movement. That mechanical movement is not there. That is what you see. You feel that in the physical world there is a continuity. But the continuity is an illusion, because the truth is that every instant it is being created and also is being destroyed. Now, why should this be so? Because there is mutability in the physical world, and mutability implies creation as well as destruction. Because mutable means change, transience. Okay, so this is my explanation of what Mother is saying. So I hope, Jasmine, was I clear?
Yes, please. Absolutely clear. Thank you.
It's a very interesting thing actually, because this is this we don't realize. You know, one of the scientists is he wrote a book called The Tao of Physics. Okay, Fritjof Capra is the name, and he wrote this book. He's a scientist. He was sitting on the California coast, and this is what he saw. He saw that there is a destruction and a creation. The creation. He had the experience of the creation, and he has written a book called the Tao of Physics. The Tao is T-A-O. It's the word for in Chinese for the Brahman. And the Brahman is what? The immutability. The immutability, the self, which is absolutely stable, featureless, immutable, eternal, infinite. So this is what he wrote. Okay. And in that book, he has compared scientific statements with Srebno's life divine statements. Okay. It's an interesting book. And this all came at the end of the 20th century, beginning of the 20th century. So, so that is the my explanation of what Mother is saying. Okay. So, if you are satisfied or if you have any question, we can discuss further. Otherwise, we'll go on to life divine.
It's a clear to understand.
Pardon?
I think. Yes. I think I understand well through your explanation, Rangada.
That's why I went from a big lifetime to a shorter lifetime to a shorter lifetime to a shorter lifetime. Okay. So in the physical world, there is always a time gap between creation and destruction. And everything that is created in the physical world dies. Okay. Nothing is permanent and eternal. Transience and mutability is the nature of the physical world. And the nature of the highest level is absolute immutability. In other words, no manifestation at all. The unmanifested and here manifestation. There are several ideas involved in it, and if you have to put all these put in correlation all these ideas, immutability and destruction and creation, then the whole thing becomes quite clear. Okay, so
in fact, Rangada, even this statement is a part of life divine.
Yes, absolutely.
This has been discussed in life divine. I can't mention the chapter, but it has been detailed discussed in life divine also.
Yes, because he has discussed this. Even the problem is there even in science, okay, in a different way. Because when they did the Michael Mollison experiment, they found that when you are observing, the result is different. So consciousness is actually distorting. So they had a problem. On one hand, you are seeing that light is a wave. It's a continuous motion. And on the other hand, you are seeing that light is actually particles coming in bits and pieces. So what is it? Which one is it? The truth is that it is both. And this Brahma Vishnu Shiva experience explains to science that it is both together. Okay. At the highest level, it is continuous, non-creative, and at the lower level, it is a broken creation, destruction. So it is particles. Particles, so they had a problem. So is it particle or is it a wave? So they coined a new word called wavicle. So this is science also faces the same problem. Is it a continuous motion or is it coming in bits and pieces? That's why you have the quantum theory. The quantum theory means the light is actually coming in packets of quantum, in bits and pieces. This is all these ideas are related. Okay. So now we can go to life divine. And
page 506. Page 506.
Suki is saying 506.
506, yes.
We have then to scrutinize. Okay.
Read it.
Yeah. So Archana, you read today.
I'll read because later I can't read.
Yeah,
okay. We have then to scrutinize more closely than we have yet done the character and operation of this principle or this power of ignorance and arrive at a clearer conception of its nature and origin. And first, we must fix firmly in our minds what we mean by the word itself. The distinction between the knowledge and the ignorance begins with the hymns of the Rig Veda. Here, knowledge appears to signify a consciousness of the truth, the right, Satyam Ritam, and of all that is of the order of the truth and right. Ignorance is an unconsciousness, a chitti, of the truth and right, an opposition to its workings, and a creation of false or adverse workings. Ignorance is the absence of the divine eye of perception, which gives us the sight of the supramental truth. It is the non-perceiving principle of our consciousness as opposed to the truth-perceiving conscious vision and knowledge, achiti and chitti. In its actual operation, this non-perceiving is not an entire inconscience, the inconsciency from which this world has arisen, apraketam salilam, but either a limited or a false knowledge, a knowledge based on the division of undivided being, founded upon the fragmentary, the little, opposed to the opulent, vast, and luminous completeness of things. It is a cognition which, by the opportunity of its limitations, is turned into falsehood and supported in that aspect by the sons of darkness and division, enemies of the divine endeavor in man, the assailants, robbers, coverers of his light of knowledge. It was therefore regarded as an undivine Maya, a Devi Maya, that which creates false mental forms and appearances, and hence the later significance of this word, which seems to have meant originally a formative power of knowledge, the true magic of the supreme mage, the divine magician, but was also used for the adverse formative power of a lower knowledge, the deceit, illusion, and deluding magic of the Rakshasa. The divine Maya is the knowledge of the truth of things, its essence, law, operation, which the gods possess, and on which they found their own eternal action and creation. Devanam Adabdha Ratani, and the building of their powers in the human being. This idea of the Vedic mystics can, in a more metaphysical thought and language, be translated into the conception that the ignorance is in its origin a dividing mental knowledge which does not grasp the unity, essence, self-law of things in their one origin and in their universality, but works rather upon divided particulars, separate phenomena, partial relations, as if they were the truth we had to seize, or as if they could really be understood at all without going back behind the division to the unity, behind the dispersion to the universality. The knowledge is that which tends towards unification and, attaining to the supramental faculty, seizes the oneness, the essence, the self-law of existence, and views and deals with the multiplicity of things out of that light and plenitude. In some sort, as does the divine himself from the highest height when he embraces the world. It must be noted, however, that the ignorance in this conception of it is still a kind of knowledge, but because it is limited, it is open at any point to the intrusion of falsehood and error. It turns into a wrong conception of things, which stands in opposition to the true knowledge.
A big para. Okay, so let us see what he is saying. I'll do one thing. To get a gist of what he's saying, we'll first of all read the summary and then we will go sentence by sentence and look, because the language also is very important and we must understand which word means actually what. Okay, so I'm now reading the summary and then we'll go back. So therefore, just 1 second. Yeah. Therefore, we must examine. Oh, by the way, the previous para he has used the two words. Just 1 second. I must refer back to what he is talking about. Otherwise, so 50, just 1 second. 506, just 1 second. Yeah, you remember the two words, luminous obscuration and unsubstantial barrier. On page 506, the last words in the para are luminous obscuration and unsubstantial barrier. And yesterday we discussed that this is the lid, the golden lid over the that divides the supermind from the overmind. It's a luminous obscuration. It is luminous, but there is a barrier. And that barrier is of light. Okay. And in fact, he says it's a translucent barrier. Okay. It's a barrier, but unsubstantial. It can be broken. It's not a barrier that is like between the normal mind and the higher mind. There, the barrier is very difficult to break. That's why man has to struggle so much to go to the self. Okay. So this is what he is discussing. He is discussing the barrier between the supermind and the overmind. Okay, so now I finished. First of all, I'll read the summary and then we'll go into each sentence. Just 1 second. So yeah, just 1 second. I have to be sure that I'm on the right page. Yeah, I think this is the one. So 508. So yeah. So yeah, that's it. I've got it. So I open the pop-up note and so what he's saying, we have now come to the fact that the world is created at the overmind level. The world creation means the division, the principle of division, which is a characteristic of the mind. It is the mind that divides and makes things separate. Okay. So he's saying, therefore, we must examine very carefully the power of ignorance and come to conclusion about its origin and nature. What is the nature of ignorance? Okay. But first, what do we mean by ignorance? The first distinction between ignorance and knowledge is found in the Rig Veda. The Veda seems to say that Vidya is the power of truth, the right, Satyam, Ritam, and the ignorance is an unconsciousness, an achitti, okay? Chitti, consciousness, achitti, unconsciousness of truth and unconscious of what? Unconscious of truth and the right. Ignorance is said to be the opposite of knowledge, and it is productive of false and adverse workings. That's the whole point. Ignorance is absence of knowledge, but also it allows falsehood to come in. That's what he's saying. It allows falsehood to come in. Ignorance is absence of divine sight, which sees the supermental truth. The divine sight sees the supermental truth. It is the opposite of knowledge. Knowledge only sees the divine truth. The ignorance is the opposite of knowledge. Ignorance is absence of divine sight, which is the supermind. So, this is what he's saying. It is the opposite of knowledge. Knowledge only sees the divine truth. But let us note that non-perception does not imply total nescience, which is the infinite sea of inconscience from which the universe has emerged. This is apraketam salilam that he has spoken about. The unconscious sea, the infinite sea, inconscious, from which the universe has emerged. But ignorance could definitely mean a limited or false knowledge. Okay, it is not total ignorance. It's a false knowledge or a limited knowledge, or a knowledge founded on division of the indivisible. And this false knowledge is supported by the sons of darkness and division. He is referring to the Vedas, okay, who are enemies of the divine, assailants, robbers, coverers of light. Okay, there is all sorts of words are used. Vritra, okay, then panis. Okay, these are all the they are really anti-divine forces are there. The hostile forces, Sri Aurobindo calls them, and they do try to disturb your sadhana, and they do try to lead you to falsehood. So one has to be very careful when one goes into that region. Particularly, these are all there in the vital world. Once you go into the spiritual planes of consciousness, Sri Aurobindo says, limitations are there, but the hostile forces are not there in the spiritual world. Okay, so who are enemies of the divine, assailants, robbers, because particular robbers is very interesting, because Sri Aurobindo says when you have an experience and you spill it and tell others, okay, then the robbers come and take it away. That's why it goes away. Okay, so coverers of light, vritra, they call it vritra, and terrors. Okay, the vritra is the name of the wolf, so it is a terror of all your experience. This may be designated as undivine. This may be designated. Actually, it is divine creation, but you can consider it an undivine creation, because there's, in practical terms, there's a huge difference between light and darkness. So you can say that darkness also is a power of the divine, but you can also say that it is the opposite of light, and light is divine, and so darkness is undivine. You can say that. Okay, it's a way of speaking. The truth comes at the highest level, but when we are at this lower level, you can speak of it in this way. It's a truth, semi-truth. Undivine Maya, which creates only illusions and falsities. But originally, Maya was conceived as a divine power to create real forms. Later, the meaning of Maya was degraded to mean power to create falsities and deceits. The original meaning of Maya is the power to create forms. But as it is coming down, these forms become more and more only form and not the reality behind. So you see only the form, and you are in a delusion. You think that that's only reality, which is not true. Okay. Later, the meaning of Maya was degraded to mean power to create falsities and deceits. The Vedic idea of ignorance, if couched in metaphysical language, can mean a dividing mental knowledge which does not see or grasp the divine unity, but works rather on the contrary principle of division and separation and partial relations. Ignorance then becomes a power that sees partial divisions and takes them as ultimate realities without reference to the background, which is ever-present unity. So, ignorance is really a power of knowledge to reduce itself and break itself up. So, if you see that way, then ignorance is a tremendous power of the divine to create forms. Okay, and those forms at the lower, it becomes the many. The one becomes the many, and as you keep coming down, at the highest level, you see the one and the many, and as you keep coming down, you start slowly losing sight of the one, and you start seeing only the many. That is ignorance. That's what he's saying. That sees partial divisions and takes them as ultimate realities without reference to the background, that is ever-present unity. So behind every form that you see, there is a divine presence, which is the unity, and the form is the falsity, the false image, because it is born and dies without reference to the background, ever-present unity. Knowledge unites, ignorance divides. That's the difference. Ignorance divides, but be it noted that in the Vedic conception, ignorance is still a knowledge, though limited, and because limited, capable of being intruded upon by falsehood and error. Ignorance thus becomes the opposite of knowledge. This is what he's saying in the paragraph. It is now 22, we have got 15 minutes, so we'll go back to the beginning of and look at some of the words that he is using. Okay. So, and he has quoted very heavily 3 footnotes. Apraketam salilam. Okay. Apraketam, praketam, consciousness. Okay. But Aprakritam. It is the infinite, unconscious waters. Okay, the inconscient, that which is absolutely devoid of consciousness. The potentiality of consciousness is there, but it seems to be total darkness. That's it, from which the universe is coming out. Note interestingly that even matter, okay, matter is, you can in a very loose way say that matter is unconscious, but there is a real unconscious, there is a real inconscious even below matter, okay, and it is thick. And Mother has had the experience once in one of her New Year messages. She says that. She says her consciousness went down, 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 narrow and stifling, she says. And then her consciousness was thrown up from that inconsciousness like a spring. She went right into the highest level where the seeds of a new creation were there. Okay, that was its supramental world. That was her experience, and she has noted that in one of the New Year messages. Okay, so they are part of the same structure. Highest total light, the lowest seems to be total darkness, but the light is there hiding inside. Okay, so now I go to each sentence and then we will see. We may not be able to finish, but we have got the basic idea. So he is now discussing the borderline between supermind and overmind. Supermind, total oneness, but also the possibility of many is there. When it descends into the overmind level, the division starts taking place. The many becomes a reality. And that is the reason why everything in the physical world, its origin is in the overmind level. That's why Sridhar says, overmind is the beginning of, in a way of speaking, ignorance. Because the many starts at the overmind level. So now Sridhar is saying, we have then to scrutinize more closely than we have yet done the character and operation of this principle. Which principle? The principle of ignorance, and that is starting at the overmind level. Operation of this principle or this power of ignorance is very clear. He is saying that this ignorance is really a power of ignorance. It's a power, the power to limit oneself. Okay, even in yoga, okay, there are those who have achieved the yogic perfection. There are 8 powers that they acquire. Okay, they are the Ashtasiddhi, what they call it. Okay, you can make yourself as small as you want. You can make yourself as big as you want. All these things are there. Okay? So, what are the words they use? Anima, Laghima, Mahima. Okay. So this is the anima. You can make yourself as small as you want. You can disappear actually, and you can become Mahima. You can become as big as you want. You can become as light as you want. That corresponds to the levitation. Okay. So all these powers are there. Prakamyam, okay, Aishwaryam, all these powers are there. So this is what the knowledge has, the power to reduce itself. Okay. And these powers the yogi also can get. Okay. So let's saying, let us scrutinize more closely than we have done yet the character and operation of this principle or this power of ignorance, and arrive at a clearer conception of its nature and origin. What is ignorance? Okay. And first, we must fix firmly in our minds what we mean by the word itself. So, the distinction between the knowledge and the ignorance, vidya and avidya, begins with the hymns of the Rig Veda. Here, knowledge appears to signify a consciousness of the truth. Appears to signify, okay, carefully, the right, satyam, ritam. Satyam, truth, ritam, right. And of all that is the order of the truth and right. Ignorance is an unconsciousness, achitti, of the truth and right, an opposition to its workings, and a creation of false or adverse workings. There you are. Now in the involution, there is a diminution. Okay? But in the evolution, This diminution does not remain only diminution, but also distortion. It becomes distorted. Okay, so this is what, because as it keeps coming down, the Satchidananda is entering different levels of density of matter. And when you go from one density of matter to another density of matter, there seems to be an apparent distortion. A very good example of that is you put a stick in calm water and you look at the stick, you will feel it is bent. Actually, it is not bent at all. So there is an apparent distortion. Okay, so it comes down, and this is what he is saying. So, and of all that is the order of the truth and right. Ignorance is an unconsciousness, achitti of the truth and right, an opposition to its workings and a creation of false or adverse workings. Ignorance is the absence of the divine eye of perception, which gives us the sight of the supramental truth. It's like we also use another image. If you have got spectacles which are absolutely transparent, you see everything full. But suppose you are wearing spectacles which are broken, which is at the lower level, you see the many. So you start seeing through your broken spectacles the many. Okay, but you replace them with the good spectacles, you see the oneness. So this is at the higher level, you see oneness. At the lower level, you see the many. Only in the middle, you can see sometimes both. Okay, you can see the one and the many, but they seem to be different. They are not one. At the supramental level, all become one. Okay, so it is the non-perceiving principle of our consciousness as opposed to the truth-perceiving conscious vision and knowledge. And Srimad has given the footnote. Okay, the footnote is number 9. The Adevi Maya. It's not Daivi Maya, but it is Adevi Maya. The non-divine Maya, non-divine power of creation. So, 1 second. Yeah. So, yes, ignorance, that we read. It is a non-perceiving principle of our as opposed to the truth perceiving. In the actual operation, this non-perceiving is an entire inconscience. In its actual operation, here at the lowest level, this non-perceiving is not an entire inconscience. It's a mixture. Okay? That's what he's saying. At our level, the inconscient sea from which this world has risen. But either a limited or a false knowledge, a knowledge based on the division of undivided being. You have this phrase also in the Gita, which says, Avibhaktam vibhaktam eva tishtati. It is actually unbreakable, but because you are seeing it through wrong senses, you see it as broken. You see it as a many. Actually, there is a close connection between all these things. And this truth is also perceived in, even ordinarily, in a very, very vague manner. You see that the environment, okay, is all one. You can't only take one aspect of environment and say, I take it independently. No, there is all a connection. There is a connection between birds and plants. There is a connection between different types of birds. The whole thing is one whole continuous thing, and we see them as different. This is what we are learning now by climate change also. We are concentrating only on our development, and we are damaging the environment. Okay. One very good example of this is the in China. Okay, they thought that the birds are coming and destroying the crops, so they started eliminating all the birds, and then they found that when the birds are going away, the insects are coming up and eating the crops. So you can't stress only one aspect of the truth. You have to see the whole thing. And this man is realizing now. There's a connection in nature between everything. There is a continuous connection between everything. You also see that between the birds and the trees. The trees are helping the birds and the birds are helping the trees, which we normally would not see, but now we are understanding that everything is one. Okay. But not spiritually, but even at the lower level, we are realizing that there is a connection between everything. And this principle is very interesting. Very interesting principle. Okay. Between the animals and between the animals. For instance, when a tiger is coming, the monkeys or the birds also, they start shouting because then they're warning the others that danger is coming. So there's a connection between that. Then also among trees also there's a very interesting thing which Nara told me the other day, that when one tree is attacked by pests, okay, whether it be caterpillars or whether it be other types of pests or parasites, because there are parasites even in plants. Okay, for instance, the money plant, money creeper, is a parasite. It climbs up onto the tree and sucks and supports itself by the sap in the tree. So then this tree warns the other trees through vibrations that here is danger is coming. Okay, so there is a connection between all these things. That connection we don't see, but we are beginning to see the connection at the very, very fundamental level. But spiritually, if you go, you will see that everything is one. Okay, so then I think, but either limited of false knowledge, a knowledge based on the division of undivided being. I refer to the Gita. Avibhaktam, that which is undivided seems to be divided. Based on the division of undivided being, founded upon the fragmentary, the little, opposed to the opulent, vast, and luminous completeness of things. Note the word opulent. There's a prosperous and wealth. Okay, both are there at the universal level. If you see vast and luminous completeness of things, it's a cognition which, by the opportunity of its limitations, is turned into falsehood and supported in that aspect by the sons of darkness and division. So there are opposites. So darkness becomes an enemy to the light. It is one way of saying darkness is not the enemy of the light. It's a form of light itself. But there's another way of saying that it is really obstructing the light. It is refusing light. Okay? So that's why he's saying the sons of darkness and division, enemies of the divine endeavor in man, the assailants, robbers, coverers of his light of knowledge. So there are in the vital world, there are all these hostile forces. Okay? We know that. Mother has spoken about the 4 hostile forces. And sometimes these hostile forces can enter into human beings and they start acting in a hostile manner. Sons of darkness and division, enemies of the divine endeavor in man, assailants, robbers, coverers of his light of knowledge. It was therefore regarded as an undivine Maya. There is a divine Maya at the highest level, and when it comes down and divides, it seems to be undivine. Okay? That which creates false mental forms and appearances, and hence the later significance of this word, which seems to have meant originally a formative power of mind. In the Veda, when the word is used in the Vedic period, it meant power of the divine to make forms. But later on, with Shankara, actually Shankara also did not mean Maya to be falsehood, but it was interpreted as such. 8th century AD, Shankara revived the Advaita philosophy, and it was interpreted as though he is a Mayavadin. Actually, Shankara is not a Mayavadin at all. This is the second meaning of Maya. Actually, Maya has got 3 meanings by usage. Just as every language, a word, when you go on using in a particular way, it gets a different connotation. So Maya actually, original meaning, the power to create true forms. The secondary meaning at the lower level, the power to create illusions. And the third meaning, the world itself is Maya. It's a magic. It's a magic. So these are the 3 words, depending on the context, how it is used. So there, I think it's time now for me. Yeah, it's already time. 8:37. So we stop here. We are in the middle of the para, and we will take up this next week only. The divine Maya is a knowledge of the truth. So we'll start from there because it's quite a big para. I knew we couldn't finish it. So Sunki, note the knowledge that is. Okay.
Yes, I'll make a note.
Yeah. Page 507, middle of the para. The knowledge is that which tends towards him. Or we can redo the whole para also. After 1 week, we are likely to forget what we have read. Okay. Au revoir.
Yes, we'll redo it, Rangada. We'll redo it because this is a very cryptic paragraph and with reference to Vedas and all that.
That's right. It's a big para and also quite involved meanings. We'll see that. So, Sunki, note down that.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay.